Rightio, we should be recording there. Greetings all, not the norm here, coming to you out of Nelson, top of the South Island in New Zealand, Aotearoa. It's 12:30 on the 21st of the 7th, 2021. Just thought I'd go over a little bit about democracy, have a wee bit of a talk about it. Because I think the time has come in the present climate that we have a wee bit of a talk about democracy and just have a look at it and see if it's working for us. So because we often hear the mantras, our democracy is at stake, or we must fight for democracy. But we've got to examine what is it, has it really served us very well, and is it really what people think it is? And if it is what we generally perceive it to be, have we even had any? And for that matter, when we look at it, maybe we should ask the question, do we really want it anyway? So ultimately, democracy is a system of government elected by the people through a majority vote, or majority rules, or known as majority rules, which sounds all good and fun while you wield the biggest stick, I suppose, and sit on the throne of power. But if we put this another way, such as might is right, and we actually start to examine it a little bit closer, then it may not sound too good at all. Okay, for starters, democracy puts half of the population pitted against the other half, pretty much, because we have a situation of the 49% becoming marginalised by the 51%, making it a very divisive system by its very nature. If anything that marginalises half of your near half your population, and that's not even considering the other third of the population that's disenfranchised voters anyway, because they've already lost faith in the system. It speaks very lowly of people's faith in the system. So I think it's something we really need to have a bit of a look at and examine to see if it's actually working in our favour at all. So the system of majority rules, known as democracy, also opens the door to the possibilities of actually becoming a minority in your own country. Should such things like an increase of a particular religion should start taking place, as we've seen in communist China against the Falun Gong. They're threatened by the peaceful movement of the Falun Gong, and can you guys see that? I'll try and move that over a wee bit actually. You can't quite see that, can you? The Falun Gong over in China there, communist China. I mean, they don't like the power that these big movements have, and whether it's a huge religion that's taking over, or whether it's an influx of foreigners into the country, or through some other unforeseen power shift that may take place, like in the particular times we are in at the moment. There's all sorts of things going on that the public, or the majority, are not really having much of a say in. So, democracy opens the doors to actually becoming a minority in your own country, if you actually think about it. And for anyone in their right mind, that's a bit of an untenable situation. So another important aspect of democracy, which must be taken into consideration, is that when we start looking at the system, the fact that politicians are known to be liars is clearly demonstrated in regards to the 180-degree changes in the narratives before and after campaigning for votes. I mean, the dichotomy between what they say they're going to do and what actually gets done is, it's 180 degrees, folks. It's pretty much the opposite of what they're telling you they're going to do as to what they actually do in the end. You know, and being that politicians is one of the most hated of professions out there, along with the bankers and lawyers, you know, most untrustworthy professions out there, you know, and here we are with a system where we're voting for these people to, you know, rule and determine our livelihoods. Again, putting us into another, for me, an untenable situation, really. So, you know, to be electing the least trustworthy people in the most untrustworthy profession, it doesn't really say a lot about the actual state of this democratic voting government system. You know, and they kind of dupe us into it too. As you know, I love how the language, you've got to investigate and look into the language, because that'll tell you what's going on. And as I've said before, you know, they call the individuals that we elect candidates. I mean, it all sounds lovely, doesn't it, the old candidate? You've got to have a candidate, isn't it? You know, so again, it puts us into a bit of a situation where, actually I might have to make that smaller, where where it makes us an untenable situation. You know, we've got the worst of the worst running the show, and you know, a third of the people, the population, are disenfranchised with it all. They're not even interested in voting because they can see through it. And again, as I say, they use this language like parties. Like, everyone likes a party, don't they? We all like candidates too, don't we? You know, and this is how they kind of dupe us into. I wonder if I can reduce that down a bit so you guys can see it. Oh no, I might not touch it actually. So this is the situation we've got. You know, and another aspect of that, of course, you know, we're participating in the system literally at our own expense, because we're voting in the worst of the worst who are implementing rules and regulations that you know, stifle our ability to be free. And if we start to think about how Freud, you know, categorized the individuals who seem to gravitate towards these positions of power, i.e. our elected officials, you know, again, once you look at what he has to say about them, you know, we really are electing the worst of the worst human beings out there, you know, to make decisions on our behalf. So again, this is an untenable situation. You know, governments are supposed to enact the will of the people as purportedly the people's representatives, and yet consistently we see clear contrast in what is said and what is actually enacted or done. You know, blatantly proving beyond any doubt, you know, because we see the same issues coming up over and over again every single election. It's taxes, it's you know, tax this, the big wigs, and less taxes for the working man, and the health, you know, more money for health and more money for finance, and more financing, more housing. Financing just means borrowing more money. You know, the mental health issues we've got in this country, the cost of living increasing. You know, someone was saying the other day, a cucumber $6 in the supermarket. I mean, it's only going to get worse, man. You know, we talk about the environment. I mean, these things never change. In every election, well, they do actually change. They seem to be deteriorating from government to government. And it doesn't seem to matter who actually sits in that seat of power. We continually see hardship in our country, and degradation of all sorts of, you know, the ways of life that we were accustomed to. And it's all, once one understands how language works, it becomes glaringly obvious. You know, especially in these days with bombardment of propaganda, censorship and marginalising of anything that goes against a narrative, and, now to the point of even being labelled as hate speech. So this is the kind of climate that we're in at the moment. It is well known also that power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately, as someone said, someone very intelligent, way more intelligent than myself. And this is seen again in daily decisions with continuously increasing taxes, runaway inflation, regulations designed to make criminals out of innocent people and virtually keep us in a state of surviving, rather than a state of thriving. So this system, as it currently stands, has absolutely no real avenues of redress as well. I mean, this is the other aspect of a democratic process. Because you have, taken part in the system, there's no real avenues of redress against any of the inhumane rules or the unworkable regulations and the corporate-driven legislation that we see. And voting, the only option you've really got in this democratic process is to vote them out. Is to vote them out every couple of few years. They'll allow you to vote for the next group of leaders. Actually, I'm not sure if I've got the quote here somewhere, but it's Karl Marx that said that something along the lines of every few years the oppressed are allowed to choose from the ruling class who shall oppress and repress them for the next few years. And that's pretty much it, folks. That's pretty much what we're seeing going on. Is, through you electing other people to have a say on your behalf, you're taking away your own ability to be able to actually able to, I'll try and pull that back a bit for you. There you go. To be able to have a real say in anything or any of the decisions that these politicians make, because of the fact that you've already voted for them and participated in the process, it infers your consent to these people representing you. And that's, again, a very untenable situation when most people don't even know who these individuals are, where they've come from, and, all the other aspects that come into them being presented as part of the selection for the election, if you like. So that's, and it becomes a rather scary kind of a concept too, as over the last 12 months with all this, the Rona stuff. We've clearly seen the unchecked march forward of unchecked powers here in our country, and this is all lockstep, of course, with the UN agendas and the World Economic Forums. Their mandates are being implemented and rolled out pretty much by our government, lockstep, and this is lockstep across the globe too, actually. I mean, it's not just here in New Zealand, obviously, in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So this current situation we've got, we're electing from the selected who've been groomed for these positions for a long time, and especially if you look at our anyone who's looked into the background of our current Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. It should raise the heckles on your back, actually, because it should raise concerns at the very least. So again, with the government having pretty much, as Jacinda says, signed us up to the mandates of the World Economic Forum and the UN Agendas 21 and 2030. We know these things are being talked about. Klaus Schwab saying you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. You'll be happy for it. This is what they've told us they're going to do, and this is pretty much what they're implementing, and the people that we're electing into, or the voters are electing into these positions, they're pretty much, just rolling out the agenda and becoming pretty open about it too nowadays. They're becoming pretty pretty blatant about what it is they're up to and what they're doing. So we need to listen very carefully to them, because they're telling us, and they've got to. Because once they've told us what they're going to do to us, and we don't object or draw our lines in the sand and start saying no, then it's consent. And as you saw earlier with the wee meme I had up here earlier, you know, they govern by consent. See, it's important, this is from the police website, New Zealand police website, correctly says it's important for us to know what people think of our service. In New Zealand, we police by consent and cannot afford to lose the support of the people we serve. It's all by consent, folks, and unfortunately, a lot of people get duped. Their consent gets, well, they give up their consent through not really comprehending what it is they're consenting to when they do it, or even the fact that they are consenting. Like, as I say, you know, when you vote, you consent to giving the representative that ends up in power the right to do what they want. And this is what we're seeing happen. You know, and when they start to implement rules and regulations when we're all in lockdown, you know, again, it's creating an untenable situation, folks. They've brought in all sorts of, you know, gun laws, controls, warrantless search and seizures. These are all overreaching laws that were brought into place while everyone was in lockdown. You know, the enforced wearing of medical equipment in the form of these openly proven ineffective face masks, you know, and the proposed forced medications in the form of the fluoridation that they're now trying to roll out across the country. They want everyone fluoridated because they know it lowers the people's IQ. And as George Carlin said, you know, the government doesn't want informed, intelligent, clear-thinking, healthy, happy people. They just don't want that, because they're not easily controlled if they are. You know, and we've seen so many breaches of our human rights, our Bill of Rights, and soon the Nuremberg codes too. They'll be breaching them with the mandatory jabs that they're talking about being implemented. You know, with all or little no accountability or recourse. You know, a situation again should be very alarming to any free and open and informed society. Or at least in the eyes of the voters and promoters of democracy. When they see these officials, you know, blatantly rolling out rules and regulations that are in breach of our human rights and established rights, inherent and unalienable. Well, they are alienable actually, but you know, so this is some of the problems we have with this political system at the moment. As soon as you start partaking in democracy, that's your power gone. You've voluntarily, by consent, given away your voice, and that's why pretty much politicians don't listen to anybody. They don't listen to anything that we say. You know, and again, you know, for me, you know, I lean towards anarchy, folks, and anarchy does not mean no rules. You know, there are the common law rules. They're common law rules, folks, because they are natural to our love consciousness, our spiritual love vibrational being, our compassionate, empathetic, morally sound vibrational field that we should naturally vibrate in and resonate to, and so, you know, and so those no rules, there are rules, folks. There are inherent rules that we live by. Don't kill, don't steal, don't harm others, don't talk shit. You know, there's all these very basic things that can keep us happy and healthy in a safe environment. Because if everyone exercises these same principles and characteristics and you know, extremely valuable ways of being, then we'll all create the world that we want, and we'll all live in the world that we want. But because of these kinds of systems, for instance, this democratic system, it's divisive by its nature. It's divide and conquer, the very modus operandi, that we've seen, throughout time. And so anarchy, we need to really look at anarchy in the media. Of course, the government-controlled media loves to be able to butcher things and turn things around and misconstrue things and put their spin on it through the propaganda and the repetitive narrative that comes out of your only source of truth, which Jacinda has quite clearly told us that her and her government is. So, such as... Oh, wait a minute, I'll just have to let me wee dog in. Excuse me. Come on. Good boy. So this is the situation with democracy, and once again, as I say, once we start to look at it, it doesn't look so pretty on the surface. So another glaring failure of democracy is when big decisions are made, such as signing the TPPA back in the day, closing the borders, troop deployment or UN involvement, offshore drilling, fishing rights, water rights, money borrowing. The voting public has absolutely no say in any of those things. And every now and then, they may give us a referendum, but, just like the cannabis referendum they had, even though they had the referendum there for the public, it's not binding. So what's the point? It's just a waste of taxpayers' money. But what it does is it placates the old taxpayer. It placates them into thinking and feeling like they've had a say in what's going on. Like they've actually had some input into what's actually going on. But in actual fact, you've had no input whatsoever. Because you've voted, your input's actually been taken away from you. I can't make that any bigger. I'll read that one out for you. So over here, so this is the process of democracy. This is how easily it is ridiculed, folks. So you have you over here. This is you in the red here, and this is old John over here. Now, if John told you that you had to obey him, or he would violate you, now that would be wrong. Now, I think it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, what religion you are, what colour you are, what background you have, what country you're from, or whatever. People would agree with that. If I tell you, if I'm here telling you that I'm going to violate you, that would be wrong. Because again, we're supposed to be operating as people call themselves sovereigns. I don't like any labels at all myself, but because again, it can be misconstrued, and there's room for doubt in there. So we want to try and remain in fact as much as possible. So even over here. So even if John claims that because he and his friends are in the majority, you must obey or be punished, that would still be wrong, wouldn't it? So if me and a couple of mates come to you and say, "Oh, look, mate, you're going to have to do what we tell you," or we're gonna punish you, we can still see how clearly wrong that is. Yep, that's pretty obvious, ain't it? Okay, so even if John and his friends vote to have an institution work on their behalf and that you must obey its dictates or be punished, that would still be wrong. So what's that saying? So if me and my mates, we all get together and we form a little party and a little institution, and we come up with some pieces of paper and some rules and regulations on those pieces of paper, and we put little fancy stamps on them, and we start calling ourselves fancy little names, and we come over and we present our pieces of paper to you and say, "Oh, you've got to jump this high, and if you don't jump this high in this particular amount of time and don't stay in the air for so long, then we're going to come over and punish you." So if you can understand this basic concept, then you understand that government neither has the legitimate or lawful right to violate you just because some people decided to vote for it. Okay? Just because me and me mates got together and come up with all these fancy pieces of paper, we can't just then come to you and say, "Mate, now you've got to comply because we voted on it." Do you see how that works, folks? I mean, that's pretty simple stuff. I think most people can get that. Most people can understand the illegitimacy of me and me mates and our pieces of paper. So that's kind of how that works. I think most people can see that. You know, and there's just different isms with our governments, with our government and political systems. You know, capitalism, socialism, which slips into socialism, democracy, which is mild socialism, which is excuse me, you know, capitalism, which is communism. It's all communism, folks, which is fascism. And that's where it's going. We're going to be, in this country in New Zealand, if we continue down this democratic process, we're going to become a banana republic very quickly, folks. And that's exactly what they want. That's exactly what they want. As I said before, the UN agendas 21 and 30, and the event 2001 or 201. You know, you start looking into these things, folks, and you soon realise and comprehend what it is that's coming down the pike, because they've told us. Once you start looking into it, you know, this is what's going on. You know, and again, with regards to recourse, you know, the only recourse you've got is to vote for someone good. Well, you see, here's the problem with that. You know, anybody who gets into those positions has to take an oath of loyalty and fealty to the crown. The crown and the queen and someone else. So that's not you. So again, they cannot ever represent you. Well, no one can actually represent you anyway when you start looking into it. Because only you can present yourself presently, you know, in the present, as a present. That's how that works. So, you know, the voting process, you know, again, you know, we're stuck into a system where the voting process, you know, it comes down to who counts the votes. Who counts the votes, folks? And as we've seen with the last election here in New Zealand with the Labour government, you know, with the majority of farmers voting for rules and regulations that the Labour Party clearly stated they were going to bring in and implement, which virtually regulates and permits and licenses the farmers away from the ability to be able to do what it is they do, and that's produce food and produce for the country. So again, this is in line with the agendas 21 and 30 and the World Economic Forum's mandates to close down, you know, alternative food supplies. This is what they're doing, folks. They've made it quite clear, and they've told us pretty much exactly what it is they're doing. Yeah, so again, it's an untenable situation. And again, you know, if anyone who's been following any Americans or the people who've been following the American systems out there, you know, you know too well with the selection of Biden election. You know, it's unbelievable how blatantly obvious it is that these elections have been, and you know, rigged. They've been rigged, and it comes down to whoever counts the vote. So, I mean, this is the problem that we have with it. And clearly anyone who followed the American elections, of previous ones of Trump and Biden, I mean, it's very disconcerting for people, those that can see it. For those that can't, you know, it's frustrating for us, the ones that can. You know, and here's Lao Tzu. You know, it says, no one rules if no one obeys. Sovereignty isn't something granted to you, okay? It's not something someone gives to you. It isn't something you beg permission for from the wealthy or from institutions, authorities, or majorities. It is something you refuse to yield. That very last inch of integrity mentioned in Valerie's letter in the V for Vendetta film. Okay? I think we get that. You know, democracy. Winston Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill, no less. I'm beginning to think that Sir is an acronym for individuals who like children a lot, put it that way. He said the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Now, he knew a thing or two, didn't he? So it's interesting that he should say something like that. So again, democracy is a political system where every sheep has an equal say in choosing which wolf it wants the herd to be eaten by. You know. So, we know politicians lie. We know we're being lied to. We know that. We know politicians are the best of liars, or, even if they can't openly and blatantly be called liars, they obfuscate the truth. Or they'll tell you part truths and half truths without divulging the whole truth and nothing but the truth. It's always spin and narrative, leaving you with all sorts of nebulous language that pins them down to nothing. It's very rare you'll get a politician to say actually yes or no to anything. And you'll never hear a politician mention the word love. That's something you'll never hear. So, you are being lied to, we know that. Your laws and codes that define everyday life are a fabrication. Your food is tainted with toxic waste. Your water is being poisoned, especially here in New Zealand with them, dropping this 1080 poison, all through our bush. It's actually unbelievable. We're being kept fat, dumb and stupid with sports, news and reality television. An entire generation is being ripped off and denied of their rights due to economic policies. Again, policies we have no control over because we've entered into the democratic system. They make terrible decisions in your life because they make you afraid of everything. Sorry, was that? You make terrible decisions in your life because they make you afraid of everything. There is no light at the end of their tunnel, no pot of gold at the end of their rainbow. The American dream is just a dream. And this is, the New Zealand dream lifestyle, it's becoming a dream too, folks. We are the zombie. Those people who watch TV, please turn your TVs off. You are the zombie apocalypse, folks. And we know how they do it. They do it through the magic of words, the nebulous language they use. So, again, Terence McKenna had it right. He said the real secret of magic is that the world is made of words. And that if you know the words that the world is made of, you can make of it whatever you wish. I'm smart of that, so choose our next words clearly. So again, half the problem we have with this democratic system is finding out who it is and how it operates and how it works, and the intricacies and details of it are out of most people's reach because we're in a system designed specifically to keep us with our heads down and bums up. That's simply how it is. And in this day and age with technology coming in, there's all sorts of major changes coming through. And with all the business closes and mental stress that's been inflicted upon populations because of the the rubbish Rona, I don't even want to say it because this is how bad the censorship is. They can ban you just because you mention a word. You can get flagged, and I've just come out of a 15-day ban actually myself on Facebook. I've still got another 10 days or something before I can actually go live or anything. So, but anyway, Buckminster Fuller said, we must do away with the absolutely specious notion that everybody has to earn a living. It is a fact today that 1 in 10,000 of us can make a technological breakthrough capable of supporting all the rest. We keep inventing jobs because of this false idea that everybody has to be employed at some kind of drudgery, because according to the Malthusian Darwinian theory, we must justify our right to exist. And this is all tied in with the governmental system and the you've got a right, and if you're not working, they call you a beneficiary. Go look into that word, folks. You actually, when you understand trusts, you want to be the beneficiary of the trust. But anyway, Jason Reed says, people who dismiss the unemployed and dependent as parasites fail to understand economics and parasitism. A successful parasite is one that is not recognised by its host. one that can make its host work for it without appearing as a burden. Such is the ruling class in a capitalist society. Think about that, folks. And that's where you have rich people working really hard, and there's your poor people being lazy. There's your bludgers. There's the ones they label as beneficiaries. And here's government at work. We've got this guy over here, old Bob. No, sorry. Oh, Bob's down here in the hole. Bob's doing all the labour work. That's the general public there, folks. And as far as jobs go, here's your product development manager. There's your veto local mobster. There's your union steward, there's your project manager, your city permit officer, your safety compliance manager, your PR manager, your logistics manager, your senior union member, and then your federal compliance manager. And then you've got OSH and and your council, and this is how it is. So there's plenty of jobs out there if you're in government. So again, you know, we really need to start looking at this political system, democracy, how it's working. Is it working? It's obviously not working for us, folks. If you've observed the degradation in lifestyle in just about every country over the last 30 to 40 to 50 years, you know, you can clearly see that democracy hasn't done too well for a lot of people. You know, as Nietzsche said, Friedrich Nietzsche, he said, government is the coldest of all cold monsters. Coldly it lies, and this lie slips from its mouth. I, government, am the people. Everything government says is a lie, and everything government has, it has stolen. Fact of the matter, folks. And, you know, in these perilous times that we're in, you know, it's wise that we need to start standing up and raising our voices. And it's good we had the big groundswell event here in New Zealand, which was the farmers getting out on the streets, and hopefully that's just the beginning. Until we get that groundswell movement to 90% of New Zealanders, which it's going to be, you know, then we can march down to Parliament and we can throw these suckers we can throw these parasites out of government and start putting in a system, start implementing a system similar maybe to the Swedish system, but through voting, through blockchain, you know, utilising blockchain technology, where you have decentralised ledgers rather than centralised controlled ledgers, which is what we have at the moment through the monetary system and banking and government. And again, this is again how they control the voting and government process. It's clearly taken out of our hands through that process. So, you know, you'll never get to be able to have your issues, especially when these minions that are groomed to be put in place, you know, they're owned by the 1%ers. And they own 80% of the world's wealth as it is. You know, so, and all politicians' loyalties are to those very same factions. Never the public. It's their sponsors. It's the people that donate to their campaign. Those people that donate to those campaigns, you know, they're the sponsors, and they're the rich. The rich, they love the political system. You know, they promote democracy so hard, and you know, push it so ostensibly, because it keeps them at the top of the food chain, and it fractures the majority, pretty much pitting them against each other. You know, again, in line with that divide and conquer modus operandi of the elite. Once we're all, you know, down here fighting against ourselves, and we're easily conquered, we'll just start picking each other off while they sit back and laugh at us. You know, do you really seriously think that the rich bother to vote? Do you think they vote? Do you think they go to polling booths and vote? They own both teams that are playing on the court. You know, and as spectators, they love it. They love it. So, no matter how paranoid or conspiracy-minded you are, what the government is doing is worse than you can imagine. And the biggest false assumption made by people, our government wouldn't do that to us. Every massacred people in history thought that. And they've clearly told us what they're up to. There's the Georgia Guidestones. They want to kill 7.3 billion people. They have stated their intentions very clearly and carved it in stone in 12 different languages, no less. Yep. They've pretty much told us what they're doing. We know who's doing it. We know how they operate. We know the institutions that they work through. We know all these things. We know that they are run by, on the face of it, people who have addresses and live somewhere. And the fact of the matter is, we all place ourselves in danger to one degree or another when we stand up. But we place our children and grandchildren in even greater danger when we don't. So the time is now, folks. And the fact of the matter is that if, they've told us they're going to take everything away from you. They've told us pretty much what they're going to do. And it's perpetual slavery, like Orwell said, imagine a boot on the face of mankind perpetually. That is what they want. And people are starting to wake up to this system, these are really exciting times because of that. This is how government works. First it breaks your legs, then it sells you a wheelchair at 10 times the actual cost. It taxes that wheelchair, regulates your use of that wheelchair, and then assures you that without government you wouldn't be getting around so well. That's how they work. The version of history you were taught in school, again, these institutions by government. They're teaching you conformity. That's what they teach. It's heavily revised to favour your own nation's agenda while hiding its crimes. And in doing so, fostered an unrealistic sense of false patriotism used to manufacture your allegiance to a corporate entity masquerading as your government. It is, folks. The New Zealand government is registered on the United States Securities Exchange Commission as Her Majesty and Right of the Queen. Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand. So it's a corporation. So all you're doing when you vote, in fact, is just voting for the CEO of the corporation. And the rules and regulations of that corporation will not change. And the corporation obviously has stockholders and shareholders. Well, you're the stock, and they're the holders. They're the stockholders. You're the stock. You're the cattle, or the chattel, as they call it. But you are the cattle, that is the stock that they trade. It's your sweat equity that they're trading. And it's slavery. Because it's a tax. They tax you. And if stealing 100% of the product of someone's labour is slavery, at what percentage is it not slavery, one would ask? But it's intoxication. That's the euphoric feeling you get when you receive a tax refund that lasts until you realise it was your money to begin with. When there's George Carlin there. Hey, Kiwis, the food you produce feeds 60 million people worldwide, and it is cheaper to buy in most of those countries. Yet you can't feed all of your own people, and the government can't even balance the budget, even with 70% net taxes on you all. Let's be honest. That is slavery, folks. And there's an image if the country was divided into wealth, the red area being the poorest half, that's 2.2 million people. They get a little bit of the southern South Island there. The richest 1% get the top end there. That's Northland, Auckland and Waikato. The richest 10% would get all of the above, plus Bay of Plenty, Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, Taranaki, Manawatu, Whanganui, Wellington, Tasman and Marlborough. Not that there's anything wrong with Southland, we get Southland, but, there sure is something wrong with the way that we share the wealth around in this country. That is for sure. There's a few little stats on incomes there. I'm not sure how old that one is. Actually, I put this meme together quite a while ago and never actually got round to finishing it off, but this presentation. But anyway, virtually says, the top percentage of New Zealanders are paying the less tax. Getting the most money, paying the less tax. It's slavery no matter how you look at it. The most effective form of slavery is a system that allows just enough autonomy to give the illusion of freedom, while keeping the public in a perpetual state of indentured servitude. So you've got chickens and free-range chickens, you've got slave and free-range slaves. I mean, it's even worse than now. They've got people running around in masks and checkpoints, and they're trying to force you to, download an app onto your phone so that you have to track and trace everywhere you go, so that they know exactly what you're doing, and, with all this, the other systems that they're trying to bring in. It's not such a pretty picture, folks, and it's something that we really need to start waking up to. And maybe one of the final points I'd like to make with the majority rules factor is that the majority are fools, folks. The majority are fools, and we're voting for the CEOs of a corporation that has no allegiance to the people that are participating in that democratic system. Democracy pretty much just keeps the bully in power for the totalitarian control of every aspect of your lives. It's an extremely clever system, and it's brilliant in its parasitic ability to be able to remain in your face but out of your view. All the while, people continue to participate in it. And it only silences people's voices. It doesn't raise your voice. And this is pretty visible in the demise of our communities and society, and these things in general. You look around, and the suicide rates, the homelessness rates, the amount of people that are living in cars or in desperate situations, the numbers of unemployed, the mental health pandemic we have in this country. That's the real pandemic. That in the mainstream media lies. In New Zealand here, we've just had the media being given close to $200 million to narrate the party line, to parrot the party line, And politics means many, poly's many, and ticks are a blood-sucking parasite. And that's exactly what we got. These and the things we should be asking these politicians is, what power do you have? What power have you got? Where did you get it from? In whose interest do you exercise it? To whom are you accountable? And how can we get rid of you? Pretty pertinent questions there. More and more people are seeing this flag around too. But anyway, I think I'll maybe end it there. So hopefully that's kind of given you a bit more of a perspective, or an alternative perspective maybe, on democracy. And what some of the pitfalls of democracy are. And it's full of pitfalls. Once you start looking at it, folks, once you start looking at it and observing, democracy in its raw sense, you start to get a real picture of exactly what's going on. So hopefully you'll take what I've said into consideration. I'll just show you a couple of other memes. Oh yeah, here's another one too, actually. Here's a term for you that you need to know about. A demagogue. A demagogue is one who preaches the doctrines he knows to be untrue to men he knows to be idiots. That's how that works. A demagogue is one who preaches doctrines he knows to be untrue to men he knows to be idiots. And a demagogue is a person with whom we disagree as to which gang should mismanage the country. The secret of the demagogue is to appear as dumb as his audience, so that these people can believe themselves as smart as he, or in our case, she. So that's a demagogue for you. Yep. Pretty much, mate. That's how it works. But they tell us exactly what they're doing. They've got to. You can have a look at that one. Again, these are different memes that again expose the the terror of democracy, folks. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that we can continue to participate in the system, knowing how well it's worked for us, knowing historically how we've seen the results of all this. This is how it works. I mean, they've got to tell us what they're doing, because that infers consent. And, once we consent, we've given them carte blanche to do pretty much what they want, and we've seen where that goes. We've seen how that goes, folks. We've seen how that works. We've seen exactly how that works here in New Zealand, and in any country that promotes democracy. And that's why they love it. They love it. The rich love democracy because it keeps you all divided and conquered amongst yourselves. Now, I want to just leave you with, actually, you can go to the AAG website. That's the Agricultural Action Group.org.nz, I think it is. If you can go there, you can go under their files tab, and Rob has put an absolutely awesome a little alternative system idea together that's based, as he bases it, on the Swiss model, representative democracy. At the very least, that's what we want. We want representative democracy. We don't have that at all. We don't have any representative democracy here at all, folks, unfortunately. And we've this is democracy for you. That's how it works, folks. And that's why they want you to have it. That's why the powers that think they are, the powers that are on their way out, that's why they push it so much. Yep. And there's lots of people throughout history who have clearly shown us and told us what democracy is all about, that it's a ruse, it's a dupe, because the deck's been stacked and the table's tilted, folks. The dice are rigged, the table's tilted, however you want to put it. It's a dupe. It's like this. Why did you steal my bike? We didn't steal. We didn't steal it. We formed a democracy. And seeing as how we are in the majority, we declare it law that we own your bike. I mean, this is how simplistically dangerous it is. This is another one, Democracy Explained. You guys ordered pizza. This guy comes back from the toilet or whatever. Yeah, we put it to a vote while you were pissing, and decided that we all wanted pizza. You owe us $5. But I don't even want pizza, he says. You implicitly agreed to buy pizza by being at the party. Pay your fair share or we'll lock you in the closet. Democracy, folks. It's not good. What is true, just and beautiful is not determined by popular vote. The masses everywhere are ignorant, short-sighted, motivated by envy or greed, and easy to fool. Democratic politicians must appeal to these masses in order to be elected. Whoever is the best demagogue will win. Almost by necessity, then, democracy will lead to the perversion of truth, justice, and beauty, said Hans Hermann Hope. So I'll probably leave you with that, and it's just about an hour long, so I hope you enjoyed that. That was just a wee bit of a down run on democracy. So yeah, so sorry I haven't been up for a wee while, out and about. We know what government is. I've gone over that before with you all. I can keep this under an hour, will be good actually. The rules are simple. They lie to us. We know they're lying. They know we know they're lying. But they keep lying to us and we keep pretending to believe them, said Elena Gorokova. I don't quite get it. You tell a lie once and all your truths become questionable by their very nature. You know, what should we do with people who rely on government handouts but are too lazy to work? Kick them out of Parliament. Good advice. So this is what's happening. So I might just leave you with those ones. You guys can stop the video there and read some of those. I'm not going to read those out to you. But that's how it is. You know, it's an illusion. Your voting and your democracy is an illusion, folks. And we've got to get over it. We've got to start waking up to this illusion, because the illusion is just going to get us down into a deeper and deeper hole. And no one wants that. No one wants that, folks. So it's up to us. It's up to us to do something about it. It's up to us to do something about it. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks for that. I hope you enjoyed it. I will do some more. I'll do some more smorgasbord of truth stuff when I'm allowed to go live again on Facebook. So I'll do that for you all. And I might just leave you with one little positive one. Just remember, the beginning is near. We are the ones we've been waiting for, and we've got the power. We've got the power, and the system is starting to crack, folks. We've got it. Let's finish it off. We can do that here in Aotearoa. So love and light to you all, and we'll see you on the brighter side of things. Once we're over democracy, of course. Cheers. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. Oh, subscribe to my channel, Not the Norm, on YouTube, and I've got a Facebook page there. You'll find that in some of my other videos if you check out those as well. So share and like my videos. Leave a comment. Always into criticisms of my work, or you know, of course, I'm no expert on anything, and you guys can add on to all of these things as well, I'm sure, because you know, there's not just one of us, it's all of us. We've got to do this together. It's about spreading the light, spreading the knowledge, and raising everybody's vibration. Because, you know, once we vibrate in the power of love, folks, nothing can touch us. Nothing can come near us. Fear doesn't even enter the equation. So yeah, love and light to you all. And keep shining bright, raise your voices, and hold the line, stand true, because we got this. See you on the bright side.